during this time of closure of the Capitol. So visit thecapitol.gov, log on, look at our previous recordings, but all that we're talking about, we will do this over and over throughout the year until we're open. Let's see who's surviving now. I know what people are thinking. Are you making this up as you go? Well, right now I am, yes.
Well, it's you know, when we're talking about people arriving.
Oh, William Jefferson Clinton.
There he is, President Clinton arriving there.
Senator Clinton can't be far away.
I would imagine. Again, they're pulling up to the east front of the Capitol, where inaugurations used to be held. JFK, Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, until 1981, moved to the west front so that more people could attend, so that more people could see, right? We looked down the National Mall earlier. You could see how there was room for people to watch from all kinds of different angles and to really fill up that space. Of course, things are a little bit different this year than they have been for inaugurations past.
You know, I just thought of a trivia question, and it's how many left-handed presidents have we had? William Jefferson Clinton is left-handed.
Oh.
We'll think of it.
How many left-handed presidents?
How many
okay, folks, you're going to write that one down. You're going to go to your favorite search engine.
Oh, the beautiful East Front.
Now, before inaugurations happened at the Capitol, when the Capitol still wasn't built, or after it was burned by the British in the War of 1812, presidents inaugurated other sites. So, Ron, as you mentioned earlier, across the street from us, the Supreme Court's current building, right on the site where President James Monroe was inaugurated. The Marine Band here. And we're going to be hearing from the Marine
Friends,
Band.
We've talked so much about them. Let's listen to our beloved Marine Band for just a little while.
So we get another arrival here, folks, coming off the buses. These are the Biden and Harris families arriving here. Everybody getting ready to go to their seats out on the west front for today's 59th inaugural ceremonies. Gonna look a little bit different than previous years, but this part is the same. Busloads of folks coming up, everybody bundled up for the weather.
Not unfamiliar to President-elect Biden because as vice president.
Yes, absolutely. Good point.
So, you know, think about this for a second. In terms of coming into a presidency, think of all the congressional experience he has in comparison to what everyone else, right? Who has more experience coming into the president? This has to be quite a moment for his family to come back yet again, but this time to be sworn in as commander-in-chief.
These folks probably know their way around the hill pretty well, yeah, and this is something that we see in previous inaugurations, right? Their arrivals here. Again, we're on the east front here with the buses pulling up, so these folks will have to travel through the Capitol, across to the other side and out onto the west front, onto the platform.
I can't emphasize this is enough. This is a shot you don't see. This is not something you see from the networks. This particular angle to the Senate side of the Capitol, what we call the carriage door.
Yeah, watching the Biden family coming in like this, you can see up underneath the porticos there. All of the, you can see some Capitol Police officers there as well. You're absolutely right, Ron. This is an angle that nobody else has. We have cameras, I think close to 30 cameras around for this JSIC live stream today. They're in places that other networks don't necessarily have, or the networks don't necessarily have. Press pool. Oh,
look
like
at this, the
line.
East Vestibule. That looks like Senator Schumer's posture.
It sure
and behind him would be Senator Mitch McConnell.
We've got Steny Hoyer there with the reddish scarf. With I think a navy blue jacket. So what we're looking at here, this is actually the east front door. So this is just behind those doors at the top of the stairs. So just to orient yourselves, folks, this is just outside the rotunda. It almost acts as a little kind of a vestibule to the rotunda. Behind the cameraman there in our frame, his back is into the entrance to the rotunda, the east side. Back on the east front, another arrival. We got a bus pulling up here.
I love those steps. Now that's the House
Those
side.
are the House steps there.
And for those that were looking at the top and said, what are those figures? That is called the Apotheosis of Democracy. It's a pediment. It was sculpted by Paul Bartlett from the state of Ohio.
The inside and outside of the building just adorned with sculpture, allegorical sculpture, a lot of it, representing not necessarily specific people, but representing ideas. Just like today is, as Chairman Blunt said, an assurance of our continued and unbroken commitment to continuity, stability, perseverance, democracy. The outside of the building, the architecture itself suggests permanence, stability.
Yes. Oh, good observation. We should mention, you mentioned Chairman Blunt. This is his second opportunity to be chair of the Joint Inaugural Committee on inaugural ceremonies. And the last person to do that was Senator Wendell Ford from Kentucky.
All right. Yeah, the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, we all call it JSIC for short because acronyms are a big part of life here on Capitol Hill. And they are the official hosts of today's 59th inaugural ceremonies. Official host JSIC, and you're watching our live stream feed. We've got a view of the west front there, looking right at it from the center. You can see the platform there. That draped doorway at the center is what we call the lower west terrace door on the west front of the Capitol. It's where we're going to be seeing people coming out later and taking their seats on the platform.
Now, to the right-hand side, as you're looking at this camera feed, to the right-hand side, the majority of the people towards the right and higher up would be the media. The sun has obviously an impact upon photography, so that's where they're placed.
Oh, yeah. On either side of this, sort of just out of view, there's another side. So you can see the bleachers type things that the spectators would sit on, but just out of view are the press scaffolds that they sit on. And you're right, the photographers are all over on the one side because the sun can ruin the camera angles if they're not.
Let's listen to our Marine band.
President. As you can see, folks, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris arriving there in the purple, arriving on the east front of the Capitol.
They are greeted by the Senate Sergeant of Arms, Jennifer Hemingway, and the acting House Sergeant of Arms, Tim Blodgett.
And there is President-elect Biden there, just out of the car, moving toward Vice President-elect Harris. Got great weather for this, of course. There's Dr. Jill Biden there in, I would call that a teal.
Teal?
Teal or turquoise?
Who am I to?
Teal and turquoise?
Question.
Turquoise with teal trim.
Oh, there's, you can see Officer Eugene Goodman close by as well. The
United States Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman, today's acting Deputy Sergeant at Arms.
He's in the brown overcoat, yes.
In the brown coat and scarf there. So, folks, you may have seen United States Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman. You might have seen some footage of him, so he has the special honor today of being the Deputy Sergeant at Arms.
I see the chair of JASIC, Senator Roy Blunt, close by.
Yeah, so some of JASIC meets them here at the bottom of the East Front steps, and then I think they meet some of the others as they walk a little bit further up the steps there.
Again, this is not an unfamiliar scene.
Senator Klobuchar, I believe, there in the
Sure is.
brownish coat, tan coat. And here we go, starting the walk up the stairs, the East Front stairs. Now remember, folks, presidents used to be inaugurated right here on these East Front steps. Presidents were inaugurated here, basically starting with Andrew Jackson.
I think President Reagan got it right. The West Front is so much better, but it's historic to be on the side.
The move to the West Front in 1981 is one of those things where people think it's always been that way. Just like the Supreme Court getting their own building in 1935, we think it's always been that way. Here we go, going up the East Front steps. You can see some United States Capitol Police officers flanking there. And approaching the east door. Beautiful carved bronze doors.
Tourists used to enter through here. The Speaker's office used to be in the lobby out to the left.
Yeah, this door is not used a lot, folks. I have to say, you know, Ron and I and our colleagues in the visitor services and guide service, we are in the Capitol just about every day, and we don't see these doors open a whole lot.
Another name for them are the Randolph Rogers doors, cast in Munich by the Royal Bavarian Foundry. 10,000 pounds. And the panels tell the life of George Washington. Well, his history.
Little scenes, yeah.
And Columbus.
Scenes of them. Columbus and Washington, they go up the sides. Also, we got a view of the inside here. Folks coming into that east door.
Excellent footage.
There's President-elect Biden and Dr. Jill Biden. You can see we've got a nice sunny day. There's Vice President-elect Harris and Doug Emhoff.
Now, friends, I know what you're thinking.
And the JSIC behind them, Senator Blunt.
Where are they going? To a hold area.
And there's Speaker Pelosi coming through again. The color of the day, I think, turquoise.
Please.
And Senator Mitch McConnell. And here we are looking at the Marine Band again. Like I said, they're going to be playing all day. And a little close-up of those uniforms, or a little bit of detail about those uniforms. As you know, they have the epaulets, you know, the braiding on the shoulders. But Ron, trivia question for you. Do you know what the braids in the front are? They sort of hang down. They almost look like a bolo tie, sort of.
I don't, and I should.
They're called aiglets. Aiglets. And you can see the ones on the officers are gold. And then the other folks in the band there, Marine Band, they have white epaulets and aiglets. So they're sort of hang down in the front, little sort of tassely looking things.
Oh, look at the passion of the director. Let's listen together. Ladies and gentlemen, this is typical of inaugurations on the West Front. What are we doing? Waiting patiently.
I think that may be Representative Delorio there, her green footwear just at the top of camera now, but she's usually got some distinctive hair color and clothes that we can spot her even with masks on. It's difficult sometimes to identify our members of Congress when everybody is masked up in this pandemic.
Now, Jen, people have watched for a couple hours now, and they might be wondering, well, wait a minute, I see marble that's different colors. You would be correct.
Oh, yeah.
That marble from Vermont, Maryland, and Massachusetts, specifically Lee, Massachusetts.
Yeah, and on the inside of the building we see a lot of sandstone and a little bit of concrete. These are concrete walls here inside what we sort of lovingly refer to during inaugurations as the chute, right? This is where people are going to be sort of slaloming out. If you will. The chute brings to mind kind of like a water park, right? But they're going to kind of come down from the rotunda and out those doors onto the platform on the west side. So the door just behind us in this shot.
This chute is at the bottom of the staircase, which connects to the crypt.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention toward the inaugural platform. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark A. Milley.
General Milley coming out now, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Now again, on previous inaugurations, you would just see tens of thousands of people. Now see, this is still quite a moment.
Yeah, this platform normally packed elbow to elbow. Folks in there, just like the early House and Senate chambers, actually. You know, National Statuary Hall members were crammed in there elbow to elbow until they expanded into the new House chamber in the 1860s.
I want our audience to, maybe not now, but this afternoon, this evening, YouTube or Google inaugurations in the past. You will see people sprawled, not on the west side, but the east front, everywhere, hanging from the dome in places they shouldn't be. This is a most appropriate sight.
Yes, famous photograph of Lincoln inaugural. It's just crammed with spectators. That is Steve Scalise there on the right, I believe.
It would be from Louisiana. He would be the minority whip.
Our Marine band playing. They've got, like I said, they've got a full day. They've got a full concert. It's one tune after another there. We're going to be hearing from them some familiar tunes and some special selections. Marine band, they've also got what's called the blood stripe, I believe, down the side of the trouser leg, which is unique to their uniform. Okay, we're back to the chute. Ron's leaning in close to identify who we're seeing on screen here. Being shown their marks, how to come out. I think that might be Clyburn in the red hat.
From South Carolina, it is.
And everybody's got to know before they come out where they're going to on the platform. There's the signed seating. There's little signs on the chairs. We saw a little bit of that earlier.
Leadership of the United States House of Representatives, Republican Whip, the Honorable Stephen Scalise, and Majority Whip, the Honorable James E. Clyburn.
So for our younger students, when you hear the word whip, that's the person that assembles the votes. That person makes calls and addresses before a bill gets to the floor, so they have a good idea whether it's going to go through or not.
The term comes to us, I think, from hunting. It refers to the whipper in, sort of rounds up and makes sure all the hunting animals are pursuing in the right direction. So it's a good metaphor for our whips in Congress to sort of round up everybody to vote. Got some more folks coming down from the crypt here.
From the state of Vermont. I saw Senator Thune in front.
Those columns that you see, the crypt of the Capitol just underneath the dome.
Janet, the act of secession is important, and this is going on with such good precision. As it
I mean, this is an event.
always has.
We've heard it now a couple of times from members of the JASIC, an event commonplace and miraculous, this peaceful transfer of power. And the fact that it's all orchestrated, coming off together. There's Senator Graham.
Lindsey Graham. I see Senator Dick Durbin, who I ran past by in the cleaners last week. It looked like Senator Cory Booker was in front of them as well.
Well, they're squinting at us and we're squinting at them.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Probably folks recognize Bernie Sanders, senator from Vermont. Well dressed for potential bad weather.
Oh, he could be in a short sleeve shirt. I mean, he's used to this. This is
really comfortable weather for today's inaugural compared to some years past.
Such as President George W. Bush. I can recall walking down the street, sliding on Constitution Avenue, just trying to get a glimpse. It was
1829, Andrew Jackson's inauguration. The weather was so bad they had to do it inside the House chamber. This tradition that we're observing today, of course, this tradition is older, far older than you or I or anybody else who's watching today. But this tradition has also evolved over time. It's changed, and things have changed about it. And so today's inaugural looks different than previous years.
Ladies and gentlemen,
there have been a lot of
leadership
differences.
of the United States Senate, President Pro Tempore Emeritus, the Honorable Patrick Leahy and Mrs. Marshall Leahy. Democratic Whip, the Honorable Dick Durbin and Mrs. Rima Doden. Majority Whip, the Honorable John Thune and Mrs. Kimberly Thune. Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles Schumer and Mrs. Irish Wineshaw Schumer. And President Pro Tempore of the Senate, the Honorable Chuck Grassley and Mrs. Jennifer Hines.
Senator Patrick Leahy has time for everyone. We see him on tour everywhere. His office is close by the rotunda. He'll greet everyone. He can give the tour. It's just amazing.
He has been a special guest on many of my tours.
Ladies and gentlemen, the members are so engaging with people. The late Congressman John Lewis, I can recall years ago, I waved him over. He says, "I'm going to vote and come back." And I said in my mind, no way. It took 15 minutes, but he came back and spoke to those young people. Well, Mr. Vice President Pence, he used to stand up, when he was a member of Congress, he used to stand up on the benches in the rotunda and give tours. I recall that all the time. That looks like Kevin McCarthy from California.
I believe we'll be seeing the beginning of the JASIC leaders going out to the platform here. That might be Senator Schumer we're seeing from the back again there.
Who once was a chair of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies.
Got some more, I think, family members coming to seats here.
You have to notice this. The wind has slightly picked up.
Wind picking up a little bit. Yeah, it looks that way.
I love this. The Constitution brings us here. It's really one sentence that is necessary. The oath. Well, 37 words or 30.
You know, it
35
originally
minutes.
said, "I do solemnly swear or affirm I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States." And James Madison and George Mason insisted the chief executive should also swear an oath to the Constitution. And so Congress approved that version. So they added a little bit to that oath of office.
That's what brings us here, the Constitution. And this date is because of the 20th Amendment. This was mentioned in the video earlier. Senator George Norris from the state of Nebraska proposed this in 1925.
Yeah, again, in terms of those things, we think of them as always happening this way. We think inaugurations always in January, but until quite recently, they were happening at other times, including March. We saw earlier in response to our trivia question that George Washington was actually inaugurated April 30th, but a lot of the other ones, March 3rd or March 4th.
Or in some cases, if it's on a Sunday, March 5th.
Yes, and if inauguration falls on a Sunday, that's right, they do not have it on the Sunday. They do kind of a small swearing in and then the official ceremony the next day. Actually,
President Wilson, I believe, was inaugurated on a Sunday. That happened once. It looks like Senator Mendez from New Jersey there. Forgive us if we're hesitating. It's difficult to see sometimes with masks.
Also, the Capitol has been closed to tours out of an abundance of caution, of course, for some months now. And so, although these 535 members of Congress, senators are our bosses, I would say, we haven't seen them in a little while.
You know what's fun, Janet? I've seen times where former members of Congress, they've just casually walked up towards the West Front, and they know they don't have a seat, but they kind of blend in. That's kind of fun.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think we saw
Vice
some former
President,
members
the
arrive
Honorable
earlier.
Dan Quayle.
Here's former Vice President Dan Quayle, the Honorable Dan Quayle, about to step through the chute and out the door. And again, we've got camera angles here that not a lot of other people do. Although there is a little zone set aside, so if there's a little moment off camera where they can straighten a tie or just do a quick check every hair is in place. Of course, with the wind on the platform, there's only so much you can do, but at least when you step out.
Not the handshake, but the...
Yeah, we're seeing fist bumps here. Former VP Dan Quayle heading out there. We thought, I guess, that Mrs. Quayle, Marilyn Tucker Quayle, I believe, was going to be accompanying him, but looks like he is out there by himself today. A lot of things different this year. This scene doesn't always look like this.
No.
With so few chairs, people have to get up and move around, and they are able to move around. So I think we're seeing a little bit more socializing and photo taking. And of course, as we mentioned, not handshakes, but handshake equivalents. Safe handshake equivalents.
To be clear, we miss the people.
Of
no
course.
Question. We miss the people. They belong here, and just the sheer...
Well, this is the people's house, and we were talking earlier, you and I, as tour guides, recalling how many times members of Congress appear during our tours. We'll be taking a group of public around through the rotunda or through the crypt or National Statuary Hall, which is the former House chamber. And, there is no separate space, right? If a member needs to get from one side of the building to the other, they go right through those spaces. And very often, it's fun to point out. People will recognize their own member from their district. They may be visiting us from far, far away, and they'll recognize the member from their district passing through.
Looks like Senator Debbie Stabenow from Michigan. You mentioned about the People's House. Inaugurations take place here, not the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
not
that's
the
a
White
really
House.
good point. Where inaugurations don't happen.
Right. They make the laws that protect us here. Elected officials here. Accountability, Congress. It's important.
Well, and this is a ceremony that's happening publicly, in full view, right?
Look at that entrance to the crypt. That was an excellent shot.
So in the crypt of the Capitol, you can see these, they're sandstone columns, they're Doric columns. They're among some of the oldest architectural features in the building. And they were originally all supposed to be painted white, and so you'll see a little bit of variation in the natural stone there.
Now that star in the center is called the compass stone. Here comes Senator Clinton and former President William Jefferson Clinton.
They just stepped through the crypt of the Capitol, heading out now down into the chute, and we'll be seeing them on the platform really soon. Back on the platform here, you can see to the left the podium where the action's going to go down. And again, this is constructed. This is all kind of built onto the side of the Capitol. There's actually a section of railing,
Yes.
which is removable. It's a massive stone balustrade. It looks like you couldn't lift it for anything, but every 4 years, it's lifted out so that there's a pathway for folks to get out onto the west front here.
We should also mention the mace is brought out here. That's the symbol of power and authority. You can make the argument that is the oldest relic in the Capitol, and it's brought out under the direction of the House Sergeant of Arms. Well, it is a joint meeting, joint session after all.
So many traditions, and we have more of those wonderful videos to show you all later on, highlighting some of these traditions that take place. This is an inside view. This is another angle I don't think anybody else's cameras have.
No, that was coming from the law library door.
Coming up from the law library door.
Yeah, that was renamed the law library in 1860.
And into the crypt.
Yes, the Supreme Court used to be in that area. They moved upstairs because the Senate moved into its new chamber. It's all about space.
We've seen some exterior
Ladies
views
and
of cars
gentlemen,
pulling
the
up.
42nd President of the United States, the Honorable William J. Clinton,
Clintons
and the
being
Honorable
announced.
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yes, every president that is in attendance and First Lady is announced.
And that's the Bushes coming through the crypt now. And down the other side of the crypt into the chute. They'll be on the platform soon, too, with the Clintons.
You know, normally we would hear the roar of the crowd for every one announced, and it is noticeably different.
I mean, I've always staggers me to imagine how Reagan's second inaugural in '85, how they had to move it into the rotunda and try to
7
stage
degrees.
this massive event inside. Because you mentioned earlier James Monroe's inauguration outside. The first one to be held outdoors, and the number of people attending just, astronomically more. All right, we've got the Obamas coming through, about to enter into the crypt there.
Quite a presence that couple brings. I'm looking for his coat tomorrow.
Now that you've mentioned to me you've never seen him in a hat, I keep looking for hats.
He's been in a hat. It's just rare when he's in the Capitol building.
And all these folks we're seeing, this is their home.
Oh, very.
They have memories here going back years, familiar faces around.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 43rd President of the United States, the Honorable George W. Bush and Mrs. Laura Bush.
The Bush is coming out of the chute and onto the platform. Oh, we got a scarf slip there. You're right, that wind is picking up.
The Bush legacy, formidable. There is a tree planted to President Bush on the House side of the Capitol, and the member's name is eluding me, Lamar Smith, who had it planted. Yes, I pass by it quite frequently.
Inaugurations almost like track the history of technology in this nation. Think about the early ones. There's no radio, no television. There's no amplification. A lot of people, I think, complained that they couldn't hear George Washington giving his speech. The first one to have amplification, 1921, Warren G. Harding. Oh, we have got the justices arriving
Executive
here.
branch.
You mean the judicial branch?
Excuse me, judicial branch. Excuse me.
There's the herald trumpets.
You mentioned inaugurations. How about President Lincoln? People were within 10 feet from him.
Oh, yeah.
Soldiers with weapons.
Those are called tabards, those things that hang on their trumpets there. They have two sets. They have a navy blue and a white. So those are the navy blue that we see there on the herald trumpets. U.S. Army herald trumpets. So our justices in their robes coming down, it's my understanding that they gather in the
Ladies
old
and
court
gentlemen,
chamber.
the 44th
Get the robes
President
on
of
and
the
kind of come all
United
out
States,
together.
the Honorable Barack H. Obama and Mrs. Michelle Obama.
Noticeable applause.
I hear the applause there. Very helpful to have announcers.
As a senator, I once shared the same elevator with him.
You know, I got
after you?
here, I actually moved to Washington on Election Day in 2008. Came here to work at the Capitol just about a week later. And then, so my first big public event was actually President Obama's first inaugural, 2009. And my job for the day was actually to escort people to their spots, to their seats.
Oh, nice.
As we mentioned this year, you know, different seating than in years past.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Justice of the United States, the Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr., and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
Justice Sotomayor will be doing the swearing in later for VP-elect Harris.
Yes, careful, everyone.
Yeah, everyone needs to watch their step. There's carpeting there.
I know what people are thinking. Why can't they take an elevator? It's just not that simple.
Well, this is a historic building. It's
Well, just to get to that point, there's other areas. Justice Barrett, I see, just towards the end.
Elena Kagan there.
Yep, Justice Kavanaugh.
It would seem that they have stepped out in order, almost in the way that they're seated, right? Because they're seated in the chamber, Chief Justice in the middle, and then the other Associate Justices
Ladies and
fan out
gentlemen,
on either
the
side in
children
order
of
of
Vice
experience.
President-elect Harris and Mr. Douglas Imhoff, Cole Mackin Imhoff, and Ella Rose Imhoff.
You know, I was reading that we have a lot of stepmothers involved in the ceremony today. Dr. Joe Biden, stepmother to President-elect Biden's sons, and then, of course, Vice President-elect Harris, stepmother to these two individuals here.
This is likely as much as we'll see of the children as coverage of young people. It's out of respect to the family. So
being shown to their seats. They are young, 21 and 26. And Vice President-elect Harris has been their stepmother for a few years now. I think they were maybe teens.
this seems so strange that there's so few people there. But
it looks very different than inaugurations past. But this tradition is so long that although this looks different than the last one and the one before that, it may not look that different than the ones at the very beginning. You know, we talked about 1801 and people saying they couldn't spot Jefferson because he wasn't wearing any special sash or hat or anything.
Coordination of spacing.
These are more family members here, I believe. These are the Biden's children here. So this is Biden family members.
I toured President-elect Biden's brother.
You know, in addition to
years ago.
You know, I think folks, when they think about visiting the Capitol, they think about sending their young students here on field trips from all over the nation, or think about coming in and looking at the artworks with us. But we do give tours sometimes to important guests and dignitaries.
Very, very fortunate.
Former President Clinton there, shown on the platform.
We're approaching the 11 o'clock hour, and in another hour, President Biden-elect, well, he'll be sworn in, and we'll hear his remarks in less than that time. So Yes, people have waited a long time, but the end is near.
All right, so the Biden children, grandchildren, about to step into the chute and out onto the platform. Robert Hunter Biden II, Ashley Blazer Biden, and the grandchildren of the president-elect there. So folks have passed through the crypt and sort of out and down the other side. Down here toward the west front, they're about to step through the draped door that we've been looking at from the outside of the platform, kind of just beneath those flags.
A question one might
Ladies
ask.
and gentlemen, the children of President-elect Biden, Robert Hunter Biden II and Ashley Blazer Biden, also the grandchildren of the president-elect.
Now, I just want to point out the Marine Band here is playing John Philip Sousa March, which is called Beau Ideal. As we see the Biden children and grandchildren headed out to the platform to take their seats.
This is the area of the Capitol Visitor Center.
Yeah, that's the area where the visitor center attaches to the old front of the Capitol. So if you look closely at the walls here, you can see sandstone from the 2000s attached to sandstone from the 1800s, and a little clear window in the floor. Coming through the crypt.
You know, with the approach of Vice President Pence, who's a pretty cool customer, if this isn't emotional, it will be when he leaves on the East Front. So it'll be interesting to see for him and his wife. Just their posture coming down, what the emotions might be. Has to be surreal.
Yes. And while all this is happening, the platform filling up with members, you know, the president-elect waiting somewhere inside the Capitol. If you can imagine folks being backstage before a big performance, the jitters, the butterflies, hoping you remember your lines, hoping you remember your marks, right, where you're supposed to stand. And then we have these cameras and spots watching folks come down the steps. Just behind those steps is actually the spot where they were meant to entomb George Washington, underneath the crypt of the Capitol. Vice President Pence here, about to step out from the chute. We see the Obamas on the platform. Soon there'll be an announcement for everybody to be seated, but not yet.
We do have a ways to go. We have the National Anthem to be rendered.
Yes. We have performances to watch. We have poems to hear. This program has expanded and contracted over the years, you know, according to the priorities of the day and according to the traditions, according to the conditions of the day. When they've had to cut things short for one reason or another, they probably, you know, left some things out, and other times people have thought, well, I've got this moment and I'm gonna hear my favorite poet and I'm gonna hear my favorite musician.
Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the Vice President, the Secretary of the Senate, the Honorable Julie E. Adams, and Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives, Catherine Spindor.
So we got the Secretary of the Senate, Chief Administrative Officer of the Senate there, accompanying Vice President Pence.
Ms. Adams was on the left-hand side.
And Karen Pence, his wife. Here with Vice President Pence, getting ready to come out of the chute.
The Pences have visited my church. Yes.
Vice President Pence is I think probably the member of Congress, Senate, that visitors have spotted the most on my tours in the past couple of years.
He has time for people, doesn't he? When
He
comes to
stops and shakes hands. I had whole school groups of 8th graders run over to meet the vice president. And again, it's one of those moments folks can't believe they're having. Came on a tour of the Capitol and saw the vice president. Oh, there they are, those tabards on the herald trumpets.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Michael R. Pence and Mrs. Karen Pence.
Quite a warm reception.
Marine Man, like Hail Columbia. Oh, I'm sorry, I think this is another Sousa March. As the Pences step out onto the platform, headed to their seats.
Oh, riders for the flag, yes.
Justices there in the same shot with Vice President Pence.
Familiar tune? You can hear the audience singing "This Is My Country." You can hear them.
I was reading about the Marine Band uniforms, and they have a slightly different uniform for the orchestra because those epaulets on the shoulder make it very hard for them to hold the violins and such. So it's an incredible thing to think about uniform design having to conform to what musicians need to play their instruments. Vice President Pence there. Oh, we see there's Dan Quayle and George W. Bush there, exchanging a greeting on the platform. Former presidents and former vice presidents and justices, you can see them all there. And families. Family that we see here.
Did you notice those two strollers earlier out on the east front? I think.
I didn't see the strollers.
Yes, two strollers.
Sure.
On the east front. I think we know who's in those strollers now.
I think we do. Got some small ones there. I think maybe the only equivalent in most of our lives maybe is attending like a graduation ceremony for a family member, perhaps. And
graduation, commencement, I would agree.
Yeah, the idea of everyone, the time it takes for everyone to find their seats, and then for all the names to be announced, and then for everybody to depart. And you've got to dress for the duration, right?
Yes. We should mention to people there is a plan B if we don't have it on the west front outside, and a plan C. But
seating down here on the west front lawn, so members of Congress, some former members, other guests.
Some of our colleagues are working in that area.
Those mayors and governors that we saw earlier arriving, the diplomatic corps, all these folks have found seats. And of course, everything spread out due to the pandemic. You can see President-elect Biden there at the top corner of our screen. Lots of photos being taken. Some family members. I believe those are the Biden granddaughters there, the three ladies in sort of pastel color coats. There is a very interesting fashion strategy for the day. Folks seem to pick bright colors so they can be spotted among this sea of dark overcoats on the platform. But again, it's a little more spread out than normal, so it's a bit easier to pick out individuals. for a view of the Marine Band here.
You know, one thing we've noticed, no one has, gone back into the entrance.
Coming out the west door.
Yes, once you're
Nobody's
out.
gone back in the west
Once you're
door.
out, I think that's it. Oh. Coming down the east staircase.
An Albert Bierstadt painting there on
Yes.
the staircase over there is VP-elect
That
Harris.
painting that people just saw used to be in the House of Representatives chamber.
And they're preparing to walk across the crypt. So that escalator you can spot at the back of the shot, that's leading down into the Capitol Visitor Center, the newest part of the Capitol complex, opened up in 2008.
December 2nd. I remember that one. Officer Goodman.
In the light brown coat.
Boy, that's going to be quite a moment. Quite a moment.
Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff here preparing to cross the crypt. Here they go. You see those sandstone columns in the crypt. So again, in the pale light brown coat there, United States Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman. Deputy Sergeant at Arms.
Yes, for this ceremony.
Acting Deputy Senate Sergeant at Arms.
Excuse me.
Eugene Goodman. Eugene O. Goodman, Private First Class, United States Capitol Police.
Very soft-spoken gentleman. Says 4 words a week. Just
He's a familiar face to
Yes.
us and to our colleagues in the guide service. And he's a face that you all may have seen recently in some photographs and video of the Capitol. We can hear the footsteps of VP-elect Harris coming down the stairs from the crypt. Officer Goodman, this is a walk he's made many a time, but never as part of the procession in quite this way.
don't you feel like he's on duty? It's just
You can see his eyes sort of going back and forth. Now, of course, he's seeing familiar faces all around him, but
Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the Vice President-elect, the Chief of Inaugural Ceremonies, Maria Miller-Lohmeyer, the Acting Deputy House Sergeant-at-Arms, Kevin Grubbs, and the Acting Deputy Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, United States Capitol Police Officer, Private First Class Eugene O. Goodman.
well, crescendo of applause, and we know who that's for.
yeah.
Officer Goodman. His actions more than heroic.
Oh, there we see Speaker Pelosi. And it looks like the rest of the JSIC there preparing to cross. So
Warrior
again,
in the red scarf.
we've got to spell out our acronyms. It's the Joint Congressional Committee on
Ladies and
Inaugural
gentlemen,
Ceremonies.
the Vice President-elect of the United States, Kamala Devi Harris, and Mr. Douglas Emhoff.
Vice President-elect Harris, who resigned her seat as a senator from California just yesterday, and today, very shortly, to be sworn in as Vice President.
So her office within the Capitol will move
Yes.
from her senator's office to the vice president's office.
You know, it's really
Senate
Richard
side of the
Nixon that
Capitol.
really transferred the location of the vice presidency, working towards the old executive office building.
And putting the locus of the vice president's office here at the Capitol. But of course, they are the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. All right, so on our camera there on the right, we can see Representative Hoyer in the red scarf, member of the Joint Committee, the JSIC. Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies. VP-elect Harris hugging her children there.
Oh, that's a moment there. Vice President.
VP
Vice
meeting
President.
VP.
Yes, Harris-elect. Vice President-elect Harris, yes.
And notice the real furniture, folks. There's folding chairs out there, but that's a real chair and a real table. And on that table, I believe, are some of the sacred texts that are going to be used today. Representative Clyburn there having a moment with VP-elect Harris.
Do I see snow?
I see snow flurries, it looks like, in this shot of Chuck Schumer.
Those are snow flurries. You notice it has gotten considerably darker since.
The wind did pick up.
Well, soon to be the 46th president.
Joe Biden, Dr. Joe Biden,
making their way.
Getting ready to cross through the crypt.
Wave to the camera, yes.
I can't stress enough that we have cameras in areas that you won't see on any other live stream or broadcast. These behind-the-scenes shots, this idea
The
that you
Joint
can see into the
Congressional
visitor
Committee on
center.
Inaugural Ceremonies, Staff Representative Alexandria Gordican DeChico, accompanying the House Republican leader, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy. Staff Representative Bridget Brennan, accompanying House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steny Hoyer and Mrs. Yvette Lewis. Staff Representative Kate Knudsen, accompanying Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi and Mr. Paul Pelosi. Staff Representative Lindsey Kerr, accompanying the Honorable Amy Klobuchar and Mr. John Bessler. Staff Representative Stephanie Hager Mucko, accompanying Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable Mitch McConnell and the Honorable Elaine L. Chao. And Staff Representative Rochelle Graves Schroeder, accompanying the Chairman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Roy Blunt and Mrs. Abigail Blunt.
So those members of the JCEC, the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the official host of today's 59th inaugural ceremonies, we can see them there headed out onto the platform. The announcer just said the names.
Proud moment for the committee.
They've put all this together.
Not just September, well before that, the planning has gone on. And let's be honest, this has been a different inauguration and hopefully something that we won't see again for a lot of different reasons. And they've really pulled this off handsomely. There goes Senator Blunt, the former Majority Whip of the House. He's been through a few of these ceremonies. Again, this is the second time he has chaired this committee.
Yes.
There's been 5 people to chair the committee twice, and Senator Blunt would be the latest.
He spoke of this ceremony today being an assurance for all people, our continued and unbroken commitment, continuity, stability, perseverance, democracy. As we get ready to see the peaceful transfer of power, an event both commonplace and miraculous. President-elect Biden here and Dr. Jill Biden just passing through the crypt of the Capitol, soon to emerge onto the platform. We can see the back of the Obamas here on the platform. Cole and Ella, and it's snowing. Cole and Ella, VP Harris's children there. Ella is the young lady you see with the plaid coat with kind of a embellishment on the shoulders.
Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the President-elect, the Staff Director of the Joint Congressional Committee and Inaugural Ceremonies, Fitzhugh Elder IV, the Acting House Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Tim Blodgett, and the Acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Jennifer Hemingway.
You know, snow, not unheard of in Washington in January. But you know what? When they used to have these in March, snow was also not unheard of.
Not at all.
Until 1933, inaugurations happened in March, and pretty risky in the era before paved roads.
Well, our last inauguration, we had a little bit of rain. President Trump, on our last inauguration, of course, President Obama, I think it was about 25 degrees.
The weather's always an element.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., and Dr. Jill Biden.
This piece by the Marine Band Trio from Hail America. A Marine band known as the President's Own. They play at the pleasure of the President and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And they've played at every inauguration since Jefferson's. Biden's approaching their seats on the platform here. Greeting former VP Dan Quayle.
Look at his eyes.
The pride.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
That's a phrase that is well welcomed right now. Let's enjoy the ceremony.
Please welcome the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Vice President Pence, Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, members of Congress and the judicial branch, former presidents and first ladies, vice presidents, leaders from abroad, and a whole bunch of Bidens. America, welcome to the 59th. It is the moment when leaders brought to this stage by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish it and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, guardians of our country. Have we become too jaded, too accustomed to the ritual of the passing of the torch of democracy to truly appreciate what a blessing and a privilege it is to witness this moment? I think not. 2 weeks ago, when an angry, violent mob staged an insurrection and desecrated this temple of our democracy, it awakened us to our responsibilities as Americans. This is the day when our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does: goes forward as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This conveyance of a sacred trust between our leaders and our people takes place in front of this shining Capitol dome for a reason. When Abraham Lincoln gave his first inaugural address in front of this Capitol, the dome was only partially constructed, braced by ropes of steel. He promised he would finish it. He was criticized for spending funds on it during the Civil War. To those critics, he replied, "If the people see the Capitol going on, it is a sign we intend the Union shall go on." And it did, and it will. Generations of Americans gave their lives to preserve our republic in this place. Great legislation to protect civil rights and economic security and lead the world was debated and crafted under this dome. Now it falls on all of us, not just the two leaders we are inaugurating today, to take up the torch of our democracy, not as a weapon of political arson, but as an instrument for good. We pledge today never to take our democracy for granted as we celebrate its remarkable strength. We celebrate its resilience, its grit. We celebrate the ordinary people doing extraordinary things for our nation, the doctors and nurses on the front line of this pandemic, the officers in the Capitol, a new generation never giving up hope for justice. We celebrate a new president, Joe Biden, who vows to restore the soul of America and cross the river of our divides to a higher plane. And we celebrate our first African American, first Asian American, and first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, who stands on the shoulders of so many on this platform who have forged the way to this day. When she takes the oath of office, little girls and boys across the world will know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol steps and before this glorious field of flags, we rededicate ourselves to its cause. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible, my friend and the chair of the inaugural committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
Well, I should have known when Senator Klobuchar got involved, at least there'd be a touch of snow up here this morning. Of all the things we'd considered, I don't think snow was on my agenda until I walked out the door a moment ago. But thank you, Senator Klobuchar, and thanks to the other members of the Joint Congressional Committee on the inauguration as we officially begin the 59th inaugural ceremony. I also want to thank the Joint Committee staff and our partners, particularly our security partners, for the way they've dealt with unprecedented circumstances. When I chaired the inauguration 4 years ago, I shared President Reagan's 1981 description of this event as commonplace and miraculous. Commonplace because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Miraculous because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Americans have celebrated this moment during war, during depression, and now during pandemic. Once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. That theme for this inauguration, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union, was announced by the Joint Committee before the election with the belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution established that determined democracy with its first three words, declaring the people as the source of the government. The Articles of Confederation hadn't done that. The Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to form a perfect union. They did not claim that in our new country nothing would need to be improved. Fortunately, they understood that always working to be better would be the hallmark of a great democracy. The freedoms we have today the nation we have today is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the successes and failures of our history, striving to be better than it had been. And we are more than we have been, and we are less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself is both fragile and resilient. During the last year, the pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment. People all over the world, as we're here, are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together. The Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the National Anthem and the pledge to our flag.
Є більш прихильними до демократів, ніж до республіканців. І, власне, Дональд Трамп нарікав на те, що він не міг добитися тої прихильності, якої хотів від своїх співгромадян з шоу-бізнесу. А зараз, власне, клятва прапору.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
народові нероздільному, де свобода і справедливість існують для усіх.
What you are all about to be part of America is a historic moment of first.
Це є історичний момент для приведення до присяги першого азійсько-американського і афроамериканського віце-президента Камали Гарріс. Для мене велика честь вітати на інавгураційній сцені першу американку латиноамериканського походження, суддя Соня Алатіно. Пані і панове, підведіться для приведення присяги. Підніміть, будь ласка, праву руку і повторюйте за мною. Я
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island.
Отже, давайте, доки ми чекаємо на те, що через кілька хвилин відбудеться присяга президента Байдена, давайте з нашими експертами кілька слів поговоримо. Чи ви відчуваєте напругу в цих кадрах? Як вам загалом відчуття цієї, наприклад, інавгурації порівняно з тими, які ми бачили раніше?
Я б сказала, що я відчуваю певну зосередженість. Тобто навіть попри посмішки, які ми бачимо, незважаючи на маски на обличчях, що теж ускладнює завдання розгледіти деякі емоції, ми бачимо якусь певну зосередженість, місцями, можливо, тривогу навіть, я б сказала так. І, звичайно, це пояснює унікальність моменту. Ми розуміємо, що є два ключові фактори, які відрізняють цю інавгурацію від всіх попередніх інавгурацій. Одна пов'язана з ковідом, з пандемією, і, очевидно, багато людей будуть потім аналізувати не тільки, скажімо, вбрання, але і які були в кого маски, так? Жартома, але також і ці небачені засоби безпеки, які пов'язані із нападом на Капітолій, який багато хто називає нападом на американську демократію. І, звичайно, ці два фактори, вони суттєво відрізняють цю інавгурацію від попередньої, і присутність президента США так само. Пізніше можемо про це поговорити.
Позбавляє сил. Це важливий момент для нашої історії. Єдність є платформа. Ми маємо рухатися як Сполучені Штати Америки. Якщо ми це робитимемо, то не помилимося. Ніколи не помилися в Америці. Тож сьогодні, ось цієї хвилини на цьому місці, почнімо знову, почнімо всі знову. Нехайно ми одне одного чутимемо, бачитимемо, шануватимемо одне одного. Не можна ж допустити, щоб цей вогонь всіх спалив. Не кожна суперечка має бути основою для війни. Ми маємо відкрити культуру, яка використовує маніпуляції і фабрикації. Друзі мої американці, ми маємо бути інші. Америка має бути ліпшою, аніж це. Я вірю в цю кращу Америку. Погляньте, ось ми стоїмо біля бані Капітолія, завершеної під час громадянської війни, коли єдність була аж нічим не гарантованим, але ми перемогли, і ось ми стоїмо тут, дивимося на національну алею, де доктор Кім говорив про свої мрії. Ми тут, де під час однієї із інавгурацій намагалися протистояти бажанню жінок, можливість обиратися. А сьогодні ми вітаємо тут першу жінку, віце-президентку Сполучених Штатів Камалу Гарріс. Хіба ж не міняємося ми? Ми міняємося. Ми тут стоїмо за кілька днів після того, як натовп хотів побороти волю народу, виражену на виборах. Не сталося цього і ніколи не станеться. Ні сьогодні, ні завтра, ніколи, ніколи. Я хотів би звернутися з тими, хто нас не підтримав на виборах. Погляньте на мене, на мою душу. Якщо не ви погоджуєтесь, ну хай так і буде. Це демократія. Власне, право не погоджуватися у мирний спосіб є одним із тих, що надає цій державі її сили, але суперечки не мають ламати союз. І я клянуся вам, що я буду президентом усіх американців, усіх. І я обіцяю вам, що я боронитиму тих, хто не підтримав мені на виборах, так само, як і тих, хто проголосував за мене. Багато століть тому святий Августин сказав, що у людей є спільна мета – любов, що ми, як американці, любимо. Я думаю, ми знаємо можливості, безпеку, свободу, шану, гідність, честь, так, і істину, правду. Так, ми винесли уроки з тижнів і місяців. Є правда, є неправда. Кожен несе свою відповідальність як громадянин, як американець, як лідери. Лідери клянуться шанувати Конституції, захищати націю, боротися проти брехні і підтримувати правду. Я розумію, що багато моїх друзів, американців з острахом дивляться в майбутнє. Вони хвилюються за свою роботу. Багато думають, а чи вистачить грошей платити за іпотеку, зберегти будинок, думають про свою сім'ю, але що далі? І я обіцяю, я чую, але ми не повинні перестати вірити одне одному, хоч би як ми виглядали, хоч щоб ми вірили, хоч якими б джерелами послуговувалися. Нам треба цю не цивільну війну, не громадянську війни припинити. Консерватори проти лібералів. Ми можемо цього зробити, якщо відкриємо свою душі, свої серця, якщо ми трошки терплячіше одне до одного ставимося, і якщо, як казала мені мама, спробуй себе поставити хоч на хвилинку на чуже місце, бо йдеться про життя. Ніхто не знає, що нам доля готує. Інколи, коли нам треба допомога, чи коли ми хочемо допомогти, це те, що ми можемо одне одному зробити. І якщо ми так житимемо, то країна наша буде міцнішою, заможнішою, більш готовою до майбутнього. Друзі мої американці, ми одне одному будемо потрібні для того, щоб вистояти в ці непрості часи. Можливо, чи не найважчі часи пандемії. Нам треба, зрештою, об'єднаними виступити проти цієї пандемії. І я вам обіцяю, ось що, як сказано в Біблії, ми вистоїмо, ніч радість вітатиме нас вранці. Ми разом її побачимо. Колеги, з якими я працював в Палаті представників, в Сенаті, казали, сьогодні на нас дивиться світ. І я хотів би звернутися до тих, хто перебуває за нашими кордонами. Так, Америка вистояла, Америка своїми союзниками полагодить стосунки. для того, щоб боротися з викликами, які стоять перед нами сьогодні і стоятимуть завтра. І ми будемо перемагати, даючи іншим приклад. Ми будемо надійними партнерами в боротьбі за мир, за прогрес, за безпеку. Ми багато чого зазнали. Першим моїм актом буде моїм як президента заклик приєднатися до мене до хвилини мовчанки на честь усіх тих 400 американців, чоловіків, жінок, дітей, які ми втратили через пандемію. Отож, помолімося мовчки за тих, хто втратив своє життя. Амінь. Друзі, так, це часи випробувань. Ми стали свідками нападу на нашу демократію. Ми стали свідками посилення несправедливості, кліматичних змін, пандемії. Будь-яка з цих подій була б справжнім викликом, коли нам довелося з усіма цими викликами боротися ледь не водночас. І боротьба ця вимагає великої сміливості, і боротьба ця вимагатиме багатьох сил. І я думаю, що про нас судитимуть про те, як ми зуміємо боротися з цими викликами, чи зуміємо ми вистояти в цю складні часи, який світ передамо нашим дітям. І я вірю, що ми передамо нашим дітям кращий світ, ми напишемо ще кращу главу в історії американського народу, главу, схожу на те, що мені дуже подобається в американському гімні. Молитви принесли до цього дня. Що залишимо ми своїм дітям? Що вони говоритимемо про нас? І нехай в моєму серці, коли будуть добігати кінця мої дні, я зможу сказати: Америко, ти залишаєшся в моєму серці. Отож, внесімо свій внесок в історію нашої країни. Якщо ми це зробимо, то діти і діти наших дітей зможуть про нас сказати: вони зробили все, що могли, вони виконали свій обов'язок, вони зцілили цю країну. Отож, я хотів би поклястися перед Богом і перед вами, що я завжди вас любитиму, я боронитиму нашу Конституцію, я боронитиму нашу демократію, я боронитиму Америку і всім вам я дам можливість, думають про громадське благо і можливість писати нашу історію єдності, а не розбрату, історію гідності, любові, зцілення, величі, доброти. Нехай саме ця історія надихає нас. Хай саме це дасть нам можливість сказати в майбутньому, що демократія, справедливість, коли ми виконали свої обов'язки, не зазнали ударів. А саме це ми маємо цим ми зобов'язуємо нашим батькам, і це ми маємо передати нашим дітям. Країну, яку ми любимо усім нашому серцем, благослови її, Боже, нехай Господь береже її. Дякую, Америко.
Отже, це була інавгураційна промова нового американського президента Йозефа Байдена. І ми, відповідно, в компанії наших експертів Олександра Краєва, Альони Гетьманчук та Олександра Мотеля з Сполучених Штатів будемо обговорювати як саму церемонію, так і ті речі, які важливі для нас поза цією церемонією, які політичні наслідки будуть, які будуть наслідки для безпеки, які наслідки будуть для економіки, які наслідки будуть для відносин України з іншими країнами світу, наскільки Україні буде легше чи складніше мати справу з Байденом, ніж з іншими американськими президентами. Ми, очевидно, розуміємо, яка була драма у відносинах між Києвом і Вашингтоном при президенті Трампі. Про всі ці речі ми будемо говорити буквально за кілька хвилин з нашими експертами. Зараз я передаю слово Анатолію Єремі. Анатолію,
дякую, Євгене. Я хотів би лише додати, що Суспільна студія, в свою чергу, підготувала чимало відео.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. If I can ask you to sing this last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work.
Він закликає всіх підспівувати, навіть не тільки тих, хто перебуває зараз в Вашингтоні, а і перед своїми телевізорами також допомагати йому співати ці.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Одразу після складання присяги віце-президентки Камала Гарріс вже написала свій перший твіт з аккаунта віце-президента Америки. Твіт має тільки 3 слова: готова служити. Готова до служби.
Hard not to be reminded of President Obama's singing that same song at the Mother Emanuel Church.
Двічі нагадує, що президент Обама також співав цю пісню під час церковної служби, і ця пісня є як і молитвою, так і піснею. Також зараз буде виконання вірша. Це вірш Аманди Горман. Вона є перша молодіжна поетеса, лауреатка національного конкурсу благословення імені преподобного Сільвестра Біма з Бел-Елу Африканської методистської епископальної церкви.
Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms. We can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none.
Країна дивилася в майбутнє, а різниця була поставлена, була залишена в минулому. Закликає до нового сходу сонця в Америці.
Even as we tired, we tried that will forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Поетеса в своїй поезії закликала до нового сходу сонця, до демократії, волі, закликала дивитися на історію, на місце цього покоління американців в історії, від якого залежатиме майбутнє і подолання різних розбіжностей і конфліктів, які є зараз. Зараз прозвучить благословення від імені преподобного Сильвестра Біма Африканської методистської епископальної церкви з Вілмінтона, штат Делавер. Вілмінтон – це рідне місто Байдена, там вже була його штаб його передвиборчої кампанії.
As a nation and people of faith gathered in this historical moment, let us unite in prayer. God, we gather under the beauty of your holiness and the holiness of your beauty.
Звертаюся до всіх, щоб об'єднатися і звернутися до Бога. Боже, ми хочемо твоїх посмішки. Ми звертаємося ми просимо благословення для нашого президента Джозефа Байдена, для першої леді Джо Байден.
That you would extend the same favor upon our Vice President, Kamala D. Harris, and our second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and their family. More than ever, they and our nation need you. We need you, for in you we discover our common humanity.
Відкриваємо себе, нашу єдність і загоєння для наших ран, зцілення тих, хто хворий, і турботи за тими, хто помер. Ми будемо ділитися з нужденними, ми будемо визнавати гріхи, ми будемо молитися за відновлення і благати про добро для всіх наших сусідів. Ми усунемо стигму стосовно так званих недоторканих. Ми будемо допомагати бідним. і будемо надавати можливості тим, хто позбавлений цих можливостей. Будемо перетворювати наших ворогів на наших друзів. Люди не мусять піднімати зброю один проти одного. Мусимо використовувати наші ресурси для на благо і не мусимо вчитися на гніву.
We discover our commonness. Beyond the difference of color, creed, origin, political party, ideology, geography, and personal
Преподобний закликає подолати ті розбіжності, які виникають через різницю в расі, різницю в походженні.
Reaping from it a sustainable harvest and securing its wonder and miracle-giving power for generations to come.
І закликає зберегти цю дивовижне благості, яку дає ця земля. Він також говорить про ті різні народи, різні люди різного походження, які населяють Америку, і просить благословення для них. Для кожної людини, незалежно від її вибору, це наша країна. Звертайся до Бога, щоб Він навчив нас жити тут, любити країну, любити один одного.
Hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. In the strong name of our collective faith. Amen.
Please remain standing as the Armed Forces Color Guard retires our national colors.
Тепер починається церемонія винесення прапору.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain in your seats while the President and official party depart the platform. For safety reasons, your ushers will release your session in an organized manner.
Делегація покидаються.
The Stars and Stripes forever.
Покидаються вже церемонію. Тепер президент Байден разом з колишніми президентами поїде до Арлінгтонського цвинтаря, а також зустрінеться з представниками американського війська. Дякую вам за те, що ви слухали і дивилися цю важливу подію в американській історії, інавгурацію 46-го президента США Джо Байдена.
Thank you all. Thank you. Made a lot of work for you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Up here.
Okay.
Remember, you used to get all of it.
Hey, Robbie. How to do it?
I'm still standing, girl. Still standing. Still standing. All right. By the way,
It's more than the last year.
so Robert Altman said say hello, and my pal Linda was calling in yesterday. They said the budget.
Okay.
All right.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Well done.
Almost finished.
Mr. President.
Are you still on foreign relations?
Very much so.
Are you still going to work on Africa?
It is. You're welcome. To work with me. How you doing? Hanging in there? Proud of you. Doing good. Going. In the administration, I'm still working, so.
Still working out hard.
Yeah.
to the cemetery after this, sir. We still remember the film. Oh, look, two people down there, maybe. That's maybe. Yeah, but I'm saying they look like they're going towards the bus stop. Okay, with a mob of people.
So we can see President Biden here preparing sign in the president's room. A small room on the Senate side of the Capitol. We have very exclusive access to see this today, the way that we're seeing this. There'll be some parts that we don't get to see, but they're being filmed for archival purposes, for posterity.
Again, I want to go back. The reason why we have the president's room,
Yeah.
George Washington, he said the
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Wait. I put it closer over here. Okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you didn't need that eye, did you?
They already have it? That's good? Yeah. Did you see it? Yeah, I walked in this one.
Called the small Senate Rotunda. So just off the rotunda, a small area there with the columns. It's actually an air shaft. If you were to look over that railing, you'd see down to the first floor of the Capitol, and it used to distribute light and air in the days before air conditioning and light bulbs and all the stuff that we have now.
Goes the House Sergeant of Arms, Senate Sergeant of Arms.
And our acting Deputy Senate Sergeant at Arms there in the light brown coat, that's Eugene Goodman, U.S. Capitol Police Officer. Folks, you may have seen some photos, video of him recently.
I mentioned the floors. Those are mosaics, which if you visit the Library of Congress, you'll see in abundance. It's the only area that we have mosaics in the Capitol. Look how President Jackson is dominating that room right now. Look at that posture on the right-hand side.
So these statues, again, are from the National Statuary Hall collection. Every state gets to send two. There's VP Harris and Doug Emhoff, her husband, heading into the rotunda, and Dr. Jill Biden and President Biden heading into the rotunda, surrounded by a phalanx here, including other dignitaries, as we discussed, sergeants at arms.
And remember, this is a scaled back.
Yes, this is a
scaled back operation.
Remember, this is fewer people than we would normally see at inauguration. So another incredible feature of this broadcast is that we have clear views of these folks that aren't too crowded. This is incredible.
I'm blown away.
As we look down in this direction, that's the door of the Senate at the very end of the hall, that wooden door with the rounded top that you see on it there. And again, if you were on tour with us, I would be asking you to please not point your camera at that door, because the United States Capitol Police like to keep that area secure. You can see some Capitol Police officers here flanking this north door into the rotunda. So the president entering the rotunda now.
Oh, look at that beautiful
All right.
painting.
Now, this is a painting selected by the chair of the JSIC.
And the First Lady and the Vice President and the second gentleman. Normally at this time, we have a lunch, and probably no person alive has attended more of those lunches than President Biden has. It's an important moment where it's bipartisan. It's the time to bond between the executive and the legislative branch of the government. We probably don't need as much bonding because we already have that natural bonding with you and the traditions here. By those traditions, usually there's a painting at the front of that event that the chairman picks. This time, not knowing we were going to have an event until what we were going to do about an event until late, I asked Dr. Biden to help pick the painting, and this is the one that she recommended. The painting is landscape with rainbow. Rainbow, always a good sign. It's loaned to us for today from the Smithsonian American Art Museum. The artist, Dr. Robert Sheldon Duncanson, he was the best-known African-American painter in the years surrounding the Civil War. He was based in Cincinnati, encouraged by abolitionists who, among other things, sponsored a trip for him to do some study in Europe. This is a painting he painted in 1859, and I think maybe it's sort of the classic America as a paradise painting that a lot of painters were doing then. But for him, a black artist painting this painting that's so much like an American utopia on the verge of a war that we would fight over slavery, makes all of that, I think, even more interesting in that while he faced lots of challenges, obviously was optimistic even in 1859 about America. And so, Dr. Biden, thanks for helping select this painting, and glad to have all four of you here as we move on to my good friend, Senator Klobuchar. I like the rainbow. The rainbow is always a good sign. Let's hope so. Go right ahead.
A mixed race artist who created this painting, and it actually depicts essentially one of the last stop on the Underground Railroad.
Door number 2.
Moment on the river.
There we are. Good. Mr. President, First Lady, Madam Vice President, and our very first second gentleman, on behalf of the American people, it is our honor to present these custom-made crystal vases commemorating your historic inauguration. Lennox, which you know is a great company, American company, has handcrafted these gifts for the past 9 presidential inaugurations. It is a good thing I don't have to hand them to you personally. They each weigh with the base 32 pounds, but combined 64. But Jill, I know, is very strong and could take them both. Exactly. But the Lennox company is actually based in Bristol, Pennsylvania, which you know, Mr. President, is a mere 132 miles from Scranton, since we know today all roads lead to Scranton. The team at Lennox has worked for months to capture the spirit of this inauguration and your incoming administration. Mr. President, your vase features the White House, and Vice President Harris's features the U.S. Capitol. The gifts represent the hope and the faith the American people have placed in you to move our country forward. Thank you. Thank you.
As Senator Klobuchar mentioned, the Lennox Company is an American company. It's been around since 1889. President Wilson commissioned china for the White House from them, the first set of American-made White House china in 1918. Those lead crystal vases, 17 inches tall, she mentioned they weigh 32 pounds. They're all handmade in Pennsylvania by a craftsman named Peter O'Rourke.
Well, Mr. President, Madam Vice President, while the pandemic has sadly limited our usual hospitality, as others have mentioned, I'm very glad we still carry on some of our favorite inaugural traditions. It's my honor and privilege to help present these flags of our nation that were flown over today's event here at the Capitol. Now, I have to make one point of personal privilege on behalf of the Senate. With all due respect to our distinguished speaker and our colleagues from the House, I have to note, not only did we just swear in a son and daughter of the Senate to these high offices, but indeed both these former senators skipped the House altogether. The Star-Spangled Banner is our greatest symbol of our endurance of the American idea. It flies over this building on triumphant days and on tragic ones, over all factions and all parties. And today this flag flew over our former colleague's inauguration as the very first female Vice President of the United States. So to our very distinguished former colleague, Madam Vice President, please accept this flag with the highest compliments and congratulations of the United States Senate.
Senator McConnell here presenting flags that have flown over the Capitol today during the 59th inaugural ceremonies. Speaker Pelosi, let's listen.
The distinguished leader of the Senate pointed out that he has hosted this lunch for members of the Senate who have become president and vice president. But I have the privilege of giving the flag to the President of the United States, the flag that was flown when you were sworn in, Mr. President. This flag may it reflect all that is said about your inauguration. America united. May it be a symbol of the hope, the healing, and the just all of the enthusiasm that you have for our country. And as we heard the beautiful national anthem, when we're at the stadium and they say, is our flag still there? Then you say, play ball, right there, play ball. So we're going to get ready to play ball. We're ready to go with the inspiration of our flag flying. But again, on behalf of the House of Representatives, it is my privilege to extend to you the flag that was flown the early moment that you were sworn in as President of the United States. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Biden. Thank you. If we had the lunch, we would have had California wine. Is that not right? Madam Vice President?
That is correct.
Mr. Emhoff, congratulations. With liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
These gifts are presented by the JSIP on the behalf of the American people. We've just seen flags presented that were flown over the Capitol today. And the next gift actually will be photo portraits of the President and Vice President at the moment of their swearing in. And those photos had to be snapped.
Oh, so quickly.
Printed,
escorted over.
Yeah, it was a real sprint. They have the mats all ready to go, and they just need to snap the photo in the moment and then get them printed and put the frames together.
Right? It's a good picture, too.
The Honorable
President
Kevin
Biden, Vice President Harris, Dr. Biden, and Mr. Imhoff, on behalf of Republicans and Congress, congratulations. Very proud of you both. When President Washington was sworn in as the first president of the United States, only a handful of people saw the ceremony or heard the famous first inaugural address. Today, the inauguration is seen around the nation and indeed around the world. Yet the task facing the nation is no less momentous than it was in Washington's time. I listened to your speech today. You talked among the tension and division. Our task as leaders is to bind this nation's wounds and dedicate ourselves to the values of all Americans share together. With modern technology, just a few minutes ago, it captured in these pictures. History in the making, for all the world to see. This picture should serve as a reminder of that task that we have before us. As a very proud son of California, it is my honor to present to a very proud daughter of California as well. Today, Vice President Harris made history, and all of America should celebrate that. But we should also remember that this is not the end, but just the beginning. As leaders, we are judged not by our words, but by our actions. So let's go forth from here together, accomplish great things for the American people. And every time you look at this photo, remember the beginning of the job we have to do. Congratulations.
Madam Vice President, Mr. Imhoff, Dr. Biden, Mr. President. No, Joe, you're Mr. President. And we are so proud of that. Dr. Biden, he makes you call him Mr. President? Marriage is about to get rocky, I can tell. On behalf of the Joint Congressional Committee on the Inaugural Ceremonies, I too am proud. More than that, I'm ecstatic to present the two of you this picture. A testament to technology and a testament to history. Mr. President, in your speech, you talked about faith. You talked about tribulations, but you talked about victory. The Johnson brothers wrote a great hymn. You know it well, Mr. President. Today we have a new day. And that hymn came out of faith and out of deep trouble into hope. And they said, facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory's won. That's what your speech was about. And that's why we are so proud and ready to march with you, President Biden. God bless.
President Biden there checking out a photo of him taking the oath of office. It's just presented.
They're both different.
Dr. King's bust in the background this past Monday. Celebration of his holiday.
That bust of Dr. King was commissioned by Congress in 1986. It's been on that spot since 1989 in the rotunda. They're on the east side of the rotunda now. They're going to step through these east doors into the vestibule. See a statue of President Eisenhower there, given to us by the state of Kansas.
Now, friends, you might have been wondering, wait a minute, didn't I see President Clinton, Bush, Obama leave? Yes, to Arlington Cemetery. They're still working. They're placing a wreath at the 2 million unknown soldier. So that's what was going on when they left, and then we had the ceremony here. There's President David Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight David Eisenhower changed his name. Representing Kansas, a new memorial to him was dedicated this past, last May.
Yes, the newest memorial on the National Mall is Eisenhower Memorial. And again, these statues, some of the statues we're seeing, part of this National Statuary Hall collection. Every state gets two. This collection was started in 1864. And there are two from each one of the 50 states. Only 6 states so far have given statues of presidents of the United States. And so those statues are in the rotunda. Looking out of the east front steps now, preparing for the pass in review is going to be coming up soon. You can see the military cordon down both sides of the east front stairs. Figures of war and peace in the niches on either side of the door. We have a little bit of a better view of the figure of peace there. On our left, you can see her. Classical drapery just at the top of the column of military personnel on your left-hand side of the screen.
I mentioned earlier about everyone liking everything old. Look at the old light fixtures. Those were just made to look like that just very recently, within the last 3 to 4 years.
And a lot of elements that are exposed to the elements like that, like light fixtures and these sculptures on the exterior, a lot of times these are facsimiles because the original ones are being held somewhere where they can be preserved for future generations.
We haven't mentioned the architect of the Capitol, Mr. Blanton, who's the architect, but just the staff, what a tremendous job they do. From inside working to outside and all this that they have to do. It's quite a task.
Oh, you can see it's called a busby, that tall furry hat on the military there.
Notice the band. Notice
And everybody's lined up and preparing for the pass and review to be starting pretty soon. We do have a video about that coming up in a little bit.
There's an old trolley stand there.
Oh, we've got some
Look at that.
historic uniforms there. We've got some Revolutionary War style fife and drum corps. So the coats that they're wearing, you can see those edges turned up. Those are called the facings. Those red edges that you see around the front edge of the coat. Traditionally, musicians will wear a different color. They will wear the inverse uniform of the main body of the military force, and that makes them identifiable because in times past, especially, people will be looking to the musicians for cues about movements, and also it marks them as non-combatants. So we tend to see very unusual and colorful uniforms on our military bands, such as the Marine Band we've seen today, the Fife and Drum Corps that we just saw, and even the Herald Trumpets, U.S. Army Herald Trumpets. Great view of the East Front stairs here, waiting for President and Vice President to come out and review the troops.
I think if you're a certain age, you might think of this area, perhaps, at a certain age, President Kennedy's inauguration, perhaps, depending on, again, the age, you think of Blackjack Pershing and his lying in state. Now, I know what you think, who's a lot? Well, maybe perhaps your grandparents can remember their parents and the imagery and the newspaper coverage.
Yeah, lying in state and lying in honor ceremonies that have traditionally happened in the rotunda of the Capitol. This past summer, they had to do something a little bit different for Congressman John Lewis, where they actually put his casket kind of right out there in front of that east front door in order for people to file by on the outside. The lying in honor ceremony happened for the first time in 1998. Two Capitol police officers.
Officer J.J. Chestnut, John Gibson.
And in 2005, there was a lying in honor for Rosa Parks. And earlier this year, Justice Ginsburg. There also was a lying in honor for Reverend Billy Graham in years past. And then lying in state is something we tend to associate with presidents, but it's happened for a lot of people, as you mentioned a second ago, General Pershing, unknown soldiers. Members of the House, Senate.
Well, who was, Henry Clay.
Yeah, he laid in state in the rotunda.
He's
the first. And then a few years later, when Lincoln was assassinated, that kind of cemented that tradition that we expect that to happen. And again, speaking of Lincoln, we're looking at the East Front steps where Lincoln was inaugurated. We actually have on display down in the Capitol Visitor Center a table.
It's stunning.
Yeah, so we have the table that Lincoln placed his notes on for his second inaugural address. And it's made from pieces of cast iron from the dome. So the cast iron, 9 million pounds of iron that makes up the dome of the Capitol. Since it's produced in pieces, there are multiples made. And if you've ever made anything using a mold yourself, sometimes they don't all come out perfectly even. So there was a pile of extra pieces and cast-offs. And the workmen working on the Capitol dome during the Civil War went through that pile of cast-offs, put together a balustrade column for the center as a pedestal for the table, some of the decorative elements for the outside to come down and make feet for it, and then they put a smooth top on it, presented to President Lincoln for his inauguration.
I think it's wonderful that American artists and artists from Italy that painted in the Capitol would often use workers in their artwork. The workers here, I love that.
Well, we even know that Constantino Brumidi, who painted that fresco inside the Capitol dome, used some of the iron workers for his models.
Charles Thomas, the superintendent, foreman.
Particularly for the scene of mechanics that has Vulcan at an anvil and forge, and he needed people to kind of stand in as models to represent the workers in that forge. Remember today's inaugural theme, forging a more perfect union, determined democracy. Looking at the east front here, backed out a little bit so that you can see a little bit of the historic Capitol on either side of the stairs.
Friends, if you were to come to Washington and walk around the Capitol, even in the evening, when it's dark, the building will teach you something. You will learn something. You'll pass a member of Congress at night and not know it. And you'll go by 20 yards later and someone will say, wasn't that so-and-so that just walked past? I believe so.
Oh, here they come for the reviewing of troops. Now, I was just going to say, Calvin Coolidge's inauguration, the first one to be broadcast by radio, 1925. And the first one for TV, Truman, 1949. The cables for people to watch it in the Midwest had literally just been installed a few weeks before. Folks on the West Coast still couldn't watch Truman's inauguration.
Well, that'd be nice if we could hear some of the commands. That would be nice, yes.
We can hear the applause.
I know those two words, forward march. I think I've uttered that a time or two. Let's listen and watch. Janet, what if I were to tell you that in one day you would have a new job and change your place of residence in the same day? What would you say to that?
Seems like a lot. And a new ride.
A new car.
And a new car there. I don't know if everyone noticed how thick those doors are when they put the president into that car, but there it is, nicknamed the Beast. Departing from the East Front, they're on their way over to Arlington Cemetery, lay a wreath.
And past two presidents while doing it. William Howard Taft and John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
The vice president getting into the car there with the flags. You know, Chairman Blunt, the JSEC, announcing this 59th inaugural, spoke about this event, commonplace and miraculous, and how this stands as an assurance to all people of our continued, unbroken commitment to continuity, stability, perseverance, and democracy. We have a statue in the Visitor Center of Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
And on the base of it, a quote from one of his addresses: "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." This year's inaugural theme, selected by the JSIC, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union.
I would say a prolific display of that today.
As we see the vice president and the president loading into the limousines, preparing to depart here on the east front of the Capitol, following the pass and review of troops. Family members headed back as well.
You know, at times, I didn't sense a pandemic or a lot of security. At times, it seemed like, well, this is what I'm used to, but there were times in which I said, oh my.
Well, I
I
think
see the difference.
this 59th inaugural is familiar and it's also different.
It's the least attended inaugural physically, but perhaps virtually the most attended, perhaps.
Yes, and we've been thinking about how, as the technology advances in our nation, these events can reach more and more people, right? You know, 1845, people heard about James K. Polk via telegraph getting inaugurated, his speech going out via telegraph. James Buchanan, 1857, the first to be photographed. You can actually see that on the website of our partners, Library of Congress. Photographed, and of course, those inaugurations here on the East Front that we're looking at through our cameras. Then, of course, broadcasts on the radio, broadcasts on the television, and now live streamed out over the internet.
How about President Carter, who's not here to attend, but is seen? It's perhaps better in some cases that for him, given some infirmities, that he's able to witness this from his comfort of his own.
Close up on the license plate there, it said 46. Our 46th president inside that limousine, again nicknamed the Beast. It's very heavily armored. You know, McKinley's was the first inaugural to be filmed with sound recording, 1897. And if you can imagine, we've talked about how in the early years with Washington and Lincoln, people straining to hear the president's remarks, you know, and the sound amplification for the crowd doesn't happen until 1921. But in 1897, people were able to listen to the sound recording.
But yet we hear about the good old days.
Yeah, in 1949, Truman, or the folks on the West Coast couldn't see it because the television cables weren't installed yet. One of those skylights there, that's the top of the Capitol Visitor Center.
It's a gorgeous view.
As we see the vice president's car going by there, sorry, that's president's car going by there. Departing now for Arlington Cemetery. Here on the East Front Plaza, right above the Capitol Visitor Center. That big glass skylight you see there, the water feature around it, black granite from Clovis, California. These flagstones, the pavers that the cars are going over from South Dakota and Minnesota. stones selected. There are 17 different states represented in the stones of the Capitol.
I was just guessing among, just as you were talking, I think there's probably 8 to 10, 17?
17 different states represented.
I learned something today.
Absolutely. There's some stone from Kentucky on the borders of the rotunda. Here in the Russell Senate office building, the Kennedy caucus room that we're stationed right outside, there's some black-veined marble from New Jersey in there. It took the architects a full year to find it.
A full year.
So throughout the day, we've been able to show you several videos showcasing history and traditions of inaugural ceremonies, and we do have one to close out today as we watch the departure here on the east front of the president and the vice president. You can see the Cannon House office building in the background there. Of Congress would live, because again, like the technology enabling us to watch and listen to this inauguration, the technology for members to travel has improved dramatically. The Senate has collected oral histories, and the members say the biggest change was jet travel.
You mentioned technology for technology for travel. The House and Senate schedule used to be based upon the growing season. Members would leave for months because they were planters.
Yeah, and the
So
traditional
calendar.
August recess
Yes.
that Congress takes is based around that agricultural calendar and also the unpredictable Washington, D.C. weather, if you
Just
can
a
believe
bit.
it. We've
Just
seen
a bit.
Today we've seen clouds, we've seen sunshine, we've seen high winds, we've seen snow flurries. A little bit of all three happening right now, it looks like. As we see the motorcade depart from the east front of the Capitol. Cannon House office building there with the crane at the top right.
Oh, I love it. I can't say enough about the people who have performed admirably with these cameras. It just...
Yeah, so we see the cordon coming down off the east front steps here, and we have one last video to explore history and traditions of inaugurations.
The inaugural ceremonies may be a routine event, but it remains a unique symbol of our constitutional system. Today, as we celebrate the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, we signal to the rest of the world that we are united as a people behind an enduring republic